Robert Weiss conceptualized loneliness as perceived social isolation, which he further described as a gnawing chronic disease. Well, it's safe to say that loneliness is a feeling none of us wish to endure upon, right? No one wishes to feel lonely. And it's quite ironical how loneliness is referred to a term when people are devoid of human connection or human contact as such, yet it's a term that people collectively tend to feel. It's quite a common apocryphal that sadness would have a lot to do with someone's past experiences or the things that happens to them. But research shows otherwise. Most of the time, it's something no one knows the whys or the what to. We have generalized this term subjective to some or the other external cause or trauma. But most of the time, there is no underlying reason to it. Solitude and loneliness, these both tend to revolve around the same term. And they both do mean to stay alone, yet solitude is the more glorified version of it. And well, loneliness, not so much. I think we all have heard of the phrase, change is inevitable, right? And as much as we've heard it, I don't think we've quite internalized it as much. As someone who's constantly been on the move, I hardly reckon staying at a place for more than 2 or maybe 3 years. And this constant moving did feel good. It felt like a refreshing change or a restart button to my life. It came along with this baggage. This baggage was the fear of not fitting in. When one tends to move from one place to another with like drastic environmental condition, we go through this process where we tend to acclimatize our body to the surroundings. So we adapt to our surroundings to suit its need. And this does justice to the physical aspect, right? Well, what about the mental aspect of the same? If we take a dive back into the past, we can see how natural selection rewarded our ancestors in forming groups or clusters. Forming social bonds was a way their brains got wired to. Being together signified survival, and being alone signified death. While their prerogative was survival, so this whole herd mentality makes sense. But things have changed, and times have changed. A lot of things around us have changed. With the advent of technology and social media, we can stay in a state of solitude and yet be connected with people and well also stay alive. Now that's a win-win, right? With the advent of technology and social media and almost millions of users on this platform, you would assume since now we are more connected, we should feel less lonely, right? Well, that's not the case. Despite the fact that we are more connected, we are more lonelier than ever. And that's because these social media platforms miss out on this important key element called emotional connection. This emotional connection is what instills this sense of validation in us and keeps us all connected with each other. And social media platforms, being devoid of this, give us this distant feeling. It's safe to say humans aren't the best at dealing with rejection. The pain of physical injury is not very different from the pain of social rejection. And this is what gave rise to the constructs of social rejection. And this has extreme detrimental effects on our psychological health, our mental health, even the society for that matter. Humans have this tendency where we tend to overlook all the positive things in our lives over the negative things. So any minor setback in a series of events that happens in our life, chances are you would miss out on most of the good things that happen to you because of that setback. Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher, claims that happiness is only ever negative and never so positive. The first time I heard this statement, I was like, that's a very pessimistic thing to say. But the more I read about it, I realized something. He did not mean happiness can never be experienced or anything. He just meant that there exists this asymmetry between how we perceive happiness and sadness. Well, as I mentioned, change is inevitable. The thing about these loneliness, solitude, and all these negative emotions, I would say, over time these tend to build up, and they can even lead to something like chronic loneliness. Chronic loneliness in general is not really referred to as a mental health condition. It still has the same detrimental effects of anxiety and depression. And safe to say that this lockdown took a toll on all of us. No one imagined this world where we would be completely devoid of each other physically, and no one was prepared for this. And during this pandemic, over 56% of cases rose with young adults from the age 18 to 24 who reported symptoms of anxiety and depression. And when I read about all of this, I thought there would be some solution, right? Like, this is not the way it can go. And the most apparent thing that seemed to me was therapy. Even though we are in this world where we are so vocal about our mental health and the way it is, therapy has always been a taboo. We are vocal about talking about therapy, but when it comes to undergoing therapy or receiving help, we always tend to shy away. There's this stigma that therapy is only for the weak-minded people, and I wanted to get into more of this. So earlier this year, I interned at a mental health foundation, and I wanted to unravel things from the other end. So I got around conducting workshops, interacting with people, and I also got around being part of this community where people share their problems and come to a solution. I also got around learning about cognitive behavior therapy and other different forms of therapy and how it could help us all. And while doing all this, I realized something, that most of us just wish to be heard. We all know the solutions to our problems and whatever we could do to fix it. But the fact that there's no one there to hear us out or help us out makes us resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms too, I would say. So in this world where we all have this void, try reaching out to your loved ones, your friends, your family. Let them know you're there for them. And you could also get help. Try asking for help and help yourself out, and you never know how much it could change in you. Thank you.